As for the shutdown itself, MSNBC senior Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale sat down yesterday for an interview with Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Here is that exclusive conversation.
Leader Thune, I'm so thankful that you came and sat down with us. Your first time on MSNBC as leader, so we're thankful that you've given us the time. I spoke with your colleague Mike Johnson about 2 weeks ago, and the first thing that I asked him was Americans are starting their open enrollment process in October and November. At the time, he maintained that these negotiations could wait because that date was pretty far off, but we're 2 weeks deeper in now to the calendar. So I'll ask you the same question. For folks who are making their open enrollment decisions now, shouldn't they have the ability to know what they're dealing with? And shouldn't you do negotiations on Affordable Care Act subsidies?
Right. And if we could just open up the government, we could do that. And I think that's really the order, Ali, that it needs to happen in. I mean, I don't think taking the federal government hostage to try and get this negotiation started is the right approach. I mean, honestly, I think we have made it very plain. We want to fund the government. We want to have a normal appropriations process. And yes, we are happy to sit down and talk about a solution on the ACA tax credits. But that needs to happen in a separate context, away from having the government open up.
But how can you tell families that they might be paying more without knowing what they're signing up for at this point?
Well, and I think when the enrollment period starts, which is November the 1st, people are going to start looking, and the insurance companies are putting rates out there, quotes out there, and they're going to have to make some decisions about that. I don't think you can if you do a straight up extension of the ACA tax credits, premium tax credits, they are enhanced subsidies. So they are over and above the base Obamacare program, which was available to people up to 400% of poverty. What the Democrats did a couple of years ago is they took the income cap off. So now you got people that are making $500,000 or $600,000 a year that are eligible for, qualifying for, and getting subsidies under this program. You also got insurance companies that are benefiting enormously because they're incentivized to sign people up because the federal government is making direct payments to the insurance companies. They go out, auto-enroll people. There are tons of people out there who have these policies who don't even know they're covered. So this is a program that's desperately in need of reform.
Can you guarantee that you guys will work to reform it?
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that there's an interest in the White House. I think the House, the Senate, there's an interest in making the health care that people buy in this country through the exchanges or in any other place for that matter more affordable. And one of the ways you have to do that is you've got to change that incentive structure that's currently baked into these enhanced COVID credits, which, by the way, the Democrats created the expiration date when they did this. They could have done this permanently, and they didn't.
I hear that. But at the same time, when you see estimates from the Kaiser Family Foundation, for example, that says on average a 60-year-old couple making $85,000 would see yearly premiums in 2026 rise by over $22,000. Are you sympathetic to families like that who say, OK, I hear the policy, but I actually just don't want to pay more for health care next year? Can you guarantee that?
And I would say, and again, I don't want to see anybody's premiums go up by that amount. Then that's not going to be attributable exclusively to these enhanced credits. The insurance companies are raising rates every year anyway. And part of the reason for that is the basic program is flawed. People ought to be able to buy the insurance that they want. And, they are in the exchanges, and every year these premiums keep going up. And that's not the way this ought to work. I mean, these premiums are going up a little bit because of the expiration of the enhanced premium tax credits.
People hearing it doubling don't feel that it's a little bit.
But I'm just saying, but only a small part of that is attributable to the expiration of the enhanced premium tax credits. A lot of it is the base program doesn't work for the reasons I mentioned.
So then what assurances can you offer Democrats that they will get a negotiation on this?
Well, I mean, I think, I've told them. I've said we are willing to have the conversation. I've said if you need a vote, we can guarantee you get a vote by a date certain. At some point, Democrats have to take yes for an answer. But I agree totally. We are all about getting health insurance down, making it affordable to more people. Premiums shouldn't be going up by that amount. And one of the reasons they are is because there is waste, fraud, and abuse in this program, and the incentive structure is skewed to the insurance companies. So the insurance companies have no incentive to lower costs. All they go out is auto-enroll people, and they're making bank doing it.
So I hear you saying about the program that needs reforms. It sounds like you're guaranteeing that there will be a negotiation on this.
Well, what I'm saying is there's a path forward, I believe.
But yes or no?
But it has to include reforms. And can I guarantee an outcome? No. I mean, and that's what some people want to say. Guarantee us that this is going to pass. I can't guarantee it's going to pass. I can guarantee you that there will be a process and you will get a vote.
So if Democrats came to you and said, okay, let's do a one-year extension at $35 billion for that 1 year, would you personally vote for that? Would you say yes?
Well, I think you'd have to do something to reform it. I think it's really hard to extend a program.
With reforms or with income caps?
With reforms, and if you did reforms, it probably doesn't cost you $35 billion a year.
So you'd say yes to that?
Well, I think you'd have to, if you structured it in a way that did away with, at least put some income cap in there like the program used to have prior to these enhanced, and these were COVID subsidies. This was in response to COVID. COVID's no longer with us. And so the people who are designed to take advantage of this program are people that are 400% of poverty and under. Mm-hmm. Now you've got people making $500,000–600,000 a year that are benefiting from the subsidy. So I'm saying that it's a program that needs to be reformed and give us, get the government open again, and let's have that conversation about how to fix it.
What I'm hearing is an assurance that it's not a question of if this is going to be a negotiation, but more a question of when, which I do feel like is a shift in the conversation. I think the other piece of this, when you're talking about guaranteeing negotiations, is speaking to the trust deficit that exists on Capitol Hill. I want to read to you what one of your members, Lisa Murkowski, said yesterday. She said, if you're a Democrat, you're looking at this situation and you say, why are you going to try to be helpful if Russ Vought is just going to do a backdoor move and rescind what we've been working on? Is she wrong?
Well, I don't think the premium tax credit issue wouldn't be resolved. That's not an appropriations issue. I mean, arguably.
But it's all, I think, part and parcel right now.
Well, I mean, but he's not going to be able to rescind. If we agree to a plan, that's something that's going to originate the Finance Committee. It's a tax jurisdiction issue. And so that is a different conversation. I think maybe what she's referring to is the appropriations process, where he has the authority, and constitutionally the president does, to try and rescind different programs. There's a question about pocket rescissions, which is going to be settled, I think, by the courts. Mm-hmm. But the rescission power is something that constitutionally the president has. The question of whether they use it or not, yeah, I mean, that's obviously something I think that they would need to talk to the White House about. But I think if we get back to doing the appropriations process, which we can do once we open the government up, and in the traditional way, which is having a transparent, open process where the committees function, Democrats and Republicans weigh in, and then we put it on the floor, we have an open amendment process, fund the government the old-fashioned way, I don't think you need rescissions.
And I think
that's the argument I would make to the White House.
I think there's an appetite for that. Have you said to them that maybe don't do another rescissions package? It feels like it's poisoned the well. Have you asked them not to?
I've had conversations on that subject with the White House, and I do think that it's in everybody's best interest, including the White House, to have a normal appropriations process where people are bought in.
So it sounds like you'd like them to stop.
Well, look, I mean, like I said, I want a normal appropriations process. I've made that very clear to my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. I think they both want that, and I think we can accomplish that. And I promised it, and that is something, frankly, that we didn't do last year when the Democrats had the majority. We didn't put a single appropriations bill on the floor. We passed 3. There's a bunch more I want to do. I filed on defense. That'll ripen for a vote tomorrow.
Yep. Do you expect to do that vote tomorrow?
Well, there'll be a vote. It'll be a cloture vote on the motion to proceed.
Sure.
And it's at 60. So we're going to need some Democrats to help us. But if we get on that bill, then I'd like to add other appropriations bills to it that have passed the committee.
If you get on that
package.
If you get on that bill and pass it, it might mean that the House should come back to town. The Speaker has kept them out for the past month. Do you agree with that strategy?
Well, I mean, I think there isn't anything right now. They did the job. They passed the bill.
But optics-wise, does it look very bad for the government to be shut down and for a Republican congressman to be gone?
We're here. We have to be here. We need to vote, and we have voted. Tomorrow, well, let's see, today will be the 10th vote to open up the government. And hopefully eventually we'll get enough Democrats who come to their senses and think the right thing is to open up the government, have a normal appropriations process, and then have a conversation about health care and tax credits and any other things that they want to discuss.
Should Johnson keep members out of town until the government is reopened in the Senate?
That's a judgment call he has to make. But I think for him, at least, the House has acted. The game is now in the Senate. That's where the action is. And we need to do our part of this. And but if we can get on the defense appropriations bill tomorrow, if the Democrats allow us, if they give us the 60 votes that are necessary to do that, we will try and add other bills to it. And if we can actually get a package of bills through the Senate, yeah, the House will have to come back to vote on it.
But it doesn't sound like, listening to you here and listening to Democrats as we do now every day on Capitol Hill, everyone's given their press conferences, it doesn't sound like either side is changing their position. So how long do you think this goes on? Is this something that lasts through Thanksgiving, as some of your own members have suggested?
Well, I hope it doesn't last through Thanksgiving, because that's going to be a lot of harm to the American people. And
Hope
obviously
is not
a lot
guaranteed.
of a lot of harm to federal workers. There is a bill sitting at the desk right now that opens up the government. You all know that. The president would sign it today. The government opens up. It's simply a function of 5 Democrats joining the 3 Democrats who are already voting to open up the government. And I think that's the quickest way to end this. And I think there is as I've said, there's a path forward on these other issues. But at some point, reasonable Democrats are going to have to come to the conclusion that this doesn't benefit anybody. I don't believe government shutdowns benefit anybody. And that used to be a position that was held by the Democrat leadership. I think right now they are very beholden to, and there's this big rally this weekend with all these left-wing groups that are going to be in town. And I think it's going to be very hard for them to agree to something prior to that rally happening. But I'm hoping that once that's, in the rearview mirror, that we'll be able to sit down. I honestly think, and I've said this, and I've had this conversation with Democrats in the Senate, that the solution to this isn't going to come through their leadership. It's going to come through their rank and file. And I think it's going to be a number of Democrats who are willing to, figure out a way to be comfortable with what the path forward is on some of these issues, to be able to vote to open the government.
I think some of the members in your caucus who are having those conversations with other Democrats are people who might be leaving Washington. I'm thinking about Tom Tillis. I'm thinking about Joni Ernst. You've also got Bill Cassidy and Susan Collins coming up for re-election. We'll see how their bids ultimately fare. But those are some of the names that we end up talking about the most, because they are willing to at least sometimes question this White House. Is what your party is driving towards the potential for a party of no dissent? And is that a healthy party?
No, and I don't think that's true. I mean, I would argue, and I've dissented a number of times just in the last few weeks.
For example, on what?
Well, on Tylenol, for example.
Okay.
FCC. I mean, you go back and check the record.
Do you feel the way RFK Jr. is talking about that is dangerous?
Well, I've said that I think that if I were a woman, I'd be talking to my doctor and not taking, advice from RFK or any other government bureaucrat for that matter. But I just think that there are subjects and issues on which we have differences of opinion. I typically litigate those privately rather than publicly. But I think there are plenty of examples, and there are lots of times I could point out to you where we have differences of opinion, and I make my voice clear. And in some cases, it results in a change, and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that's our job, is to try and present that check and balance. And we are a co-equal, independent branch of the government. I have been here long enough to see presidents from both political parties and senates from both political parties and the interaction between the two. And it's always a fight. And every executive branch, every president pushes the edge of the envelope as far as they can. And I could give you half a dozen examples of where the Biden administration did that and operated in what I would say are extra, not only extrajudicial, but extra legislative ways.
To that end, is one of the examples of the Trump administration potentially overreaching or not bringing in Congress on these strikes that are being done in Venezuela, the bombing of alleged drug cartel boats? Do you wish that they would bring you in on that?
Well, I think that they have, under the commander-in-chief authority, a lot of authority. Now, there is some expectation, I think, if this were to be a sustained thing, that they would, yes. There are war powers, requirements that at some point they have to comply with. But, we had Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, come up last week and kind of walk our members through what they're doing, why they're doing it. And if you listen to the explanation, a lot of it makes sense.
I've got 2 very last questions for you, because I can tell they're getting antsy and I don't want them to get mad. Do you think we are going to see a vote on the Russian sanctions package this week? It's just kind of been sitting there, and I'm not sure why.
Right. So there are, there are technical issues with that they're being worked out between the White House and Senator Graham, obviously, who's the lead sponsor of the bill. But it does have, I think, on the 85-ish range co-sponsors.
When's the last time you saw that?
And I think it'd be very useful for us to send that message to the Russians. But we also need to have it amplified by the Europeans. And that's one of the things the administration is working on. It doesn't do any good to have the United States unilaterally going to all these countries and sanctioning them, and then having the Europeans buying energy from them. That undermines the effort entirely. So, but I think that, this is obviously one of those issues where I think there's bipartisan support, and I think support for Ukraine in their war against Russia is something you'll hear a lot more about.
And the last question I want to ask you is, when we spoke back in May of 2023, I was prepping for this interview, looking back, we were at Tim Scott's announcement for president at that point. And at the time, you told me he was a really positive alternative to Trump. And you said, it's one, I think, as a party, we've got to turn that page and start appealing to different constituencies and with a message that is winsome and hopeful. What would you say now to 2023 you?
Well, I'm still for winsome and hopeful.
Is that what we have right now in the Republican Party?
Well, look, I mean, I think the Republican Party, the Republican Party won a big election. We have the House, the Senate, and the White House for only the fourth time in 100 years. So the American people saw something that they liked. And my job is to be the best partner I can in trying to achieve an agenda that I think the American people voted for. So, yeah, I go about my job in a different way than some elected officials and some people who, run for political office. And I think I'm an aspirational type politician, and I like to think that politics ought to be about appealing to people's hopes and not preying on their fears. And I try to model that. But my job is to do the best job I can of, finding ways to get things done, getting results, getting solutions for the American people. And that means you get to work with people who have all different political persuasions and ways of doing their jobs that might be different than mine.